Good. Does everybody hear that woman say recording in progress? It's just me.
No,
Yeah,
it's everyone.
we hear it.
Gives
Oh,
us an
good.
option to leave as well, in case we don't want
Is
to.
it? Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Casey stands up
enthusiastic.
in court.
Yeah, I know. Right, let me share my screen. Fusion. Share. Can everybody see a fusion view?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, what we're going to try and do today is we'll put some legs on the Gonk, and then I'll start to throw some Greebles on it. We'll see how the time goes. If it gets a little bit tight time-wise, we may do a session 4 and having a look at how we can add some Greebles. Or what we also may do is kind of start people off on Greebles and then leave it almost as a little bit of homework to see how far we get for next time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch the leg. I'm actually going to rotate the body first of all so that I'm looking at it from the other view, which is, whoops, daisy, which is the front view. So similar to what we did last time, I'm going to move it 90 degrees and align it to that other picture. The difference now is, if you remember last time, we cut this into 3 parts, and so that we got little peg holes, I don't know if you remember. So if you take there, we've got this piece here, we've got 3 little pegs, filament pegs, so that we can have alignment. So what we're going to do is move 3 bodies at once. And the way you do that is you highlight one of the bodies, you press the shift key, and you highlight the bottom body, and it'll select all the ones in between. It's a bit like selecting files. If you press the control key, you can select each one individually. And if you press the shift key, it'll allow you to do it between a range. So when I've selected all the bodies, I'm going to right click and move. And then I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees like that. And then with it still in the move dialog, I'm going to look at it from the front, and I'm going to slide it across to see if I can align it again on this image. There we go, which is what we did last time. And then when I'm happy with that, I'll click OK. So there you go. I've moved all, so now all 3 bodies we've moved at once because I selected all 3 bodies. What I want to do now is sketch. We'll start with one of these ankles. The ankles are round, so we're going to do, I'll show you how we do a round shape. And to do that, I know looking at the image on the left, the ankles are about halfway through the body. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sketch these halfway through the body. We said last time, the only place you can sketch it on is on a face or a plane. We haven't got plane on this body to sketch halfway through, so I'm going to make one. So this construct button here allows you to create all sorts of different planes. So the planes are a bit like the origins in that you can sketch on them, but with planes, you can put them anywhere you want. So drop down the list, and there's lots of different ways, and I covered a couple of these last time, of how you create a plane. For this particular one, I'm going to use a mid-plane. And what a mid-plane does is it gets the exact middle point between 2 faces or work planes. So if I click on mid-plane, it then asks me to say which planes do I want. What I'm going to select is this flat plane on the back and the flat plane on the front. Now, when I've given it 2 planes, what it does, it finds the exact center, which you can see in there. And it's now created me a little plane in that exact center. If you notice also, the plane is the same size exactly as the 2 bits that I've selected. So we're going to be sketching on the legs, which is somewhere down here, but the plane is actually quite small. So I'm going to click OK, that creates a plane. Now, if you go near the plane and hover on one of the corners, it'll turn green on one of the edges. And if you grab that green bit, you can actually extend it out like this. So all I'm going to do is grab the green bit. I'm just going to pull it right the way down like that. So you can make these planes as big as you want. Now, planes are really, really useful because I could use it to, if I wanted to chop the Gonk in half to make it on a smaller print bed, I can click modify, split body. I can highlight the part I want to hit, and I can use a plane as almost as a knife. So as you can see there, it will chop it straight in half. I can use it to mirror objects, which I'll show you in a little bit. But so actually, they're really, really quite useful. For this one, all I've done is create a plane so that I know that it's in the center of the gonk for its legs. So similar to last time, now I'm going to go into the sketch tool, but this time, rather than selecting one of the origin ones, I'm going to select this new plane that we've created. And what I want to do is make this leg shape. So if I go to the line button, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to find the midpoint of these legs. So the easiest way of finding the midpoint as we did last time is to select a point on the left and the point on the right of the line that you can see, and just draw a line in that place and click tick. And then if you hover your little cursor in the middle, it will automatically click or lock to the center of that line. I'm just going to draw a straight line up like that and click on tick. So now I've got the line, the width of the legs, and I've got a center line. And similar to how we did mirroring, that's why I kind of want to have that center line. I'll show you what I mean in a second. So I'm going to start, I'm not going to start actually on the line of the gonk. I'm going to start a little bit higher. So it's into the body, and I'll show you why in a sec. I'm just going to draw that out again with the line to roughly where I think the gonk legs will start. It's about there. We'll draw down a little bit like this, just into the main part of this, so coming out of the body. And then I'm going to click OK. Now the gonk legs, these look like little round circles, but from what I can see, they look like half circles. So that's what I'm going to. Oh, can you go on mute if you're not needing to speak? We're stuck here. Somebody shouting and talking in the background. Brill. So these are little sort of semicircles, or they look like little circles. We'll assume the circles. If they were more sort of arrow points, then you could also do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the point there. I'm just going to draw a straight line up to about where I think the thickness is of each of these bands. So I've got a line as a reference. And then I'm going to click on create, and I'm going to draw an arc. So the arc I want is a 3-point arc, because that lets me select a start point and end point, and then I can actually make the arc. I'll show you how this works. So I'll click on that one, click on the end point there, and then if I drag my cursor out, it will actually create that arc. So I'm going to, it'll lock to a half circle. So I'm going to lock at half circle, and I'm going to click it. So now I've got this arc. Now what I want to do is then repeat that arc all the way up there, which would take me forever. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do first of all is delete the line that I used as a reference for the arc, and I'll show you why in a second. And then I'm going to use another tool in the sketches, which is called create and pattern. Now there's circular patterns, there's rectangular patterns, so you can create patterns out of single parts of a sketch. I'm going to create a rectangular pattern. I'll show you what a pattern does. So with the pattern, first thing it's saying is select the object. So I want to select this object. The next one is the direction. I'm going to select this center line as a direction. And then what I can do is I can grab one of these arrows and extend it up. And as you can see, when I drag it, I'm actually dragging another arc. So I'm going to move it up to about there, like that. I'll move it so it'll, let me have a look. If it goes about there, I'll move it to about just above there so that it lines up with the other arcs. Now at the moment, there's 3 arcs. I don't know if you can see one there, one in the middle, and one at the bottom. So what I'm going to do now is where it says 3 in the little box there, I'm going to give it 4, 5, 6. I'm going to just keep increasing that. And what I'm watching for is when the arcs actually overlap. So you can see there that they've overlapped. What that means is that, like we've done with before, if they all overlap, it means we've got a continuous perimeter, which means that we can actually select that as a object then. So I'm clicking OK. So let me just quickly go through that. So that create and pattern is really, really useful. We used it last time to create the mirror. You can create a rectangular pattern. You can also create circular patterns. So if you've got a bit of a sketch and you want it to repeat that sketch around a circle, you can use the circular patterns. So the sketch patterns are really, really useful. What it's done for us is very quickly give us the shape of that leg. Okay, so what I've got now is I've got a plane that's in the right place, and I've got half a leg. So I'm going to finish sketches, and I'm going to create the leg now. So to create the leg, I'm going to click on create. We've used extrude before. What we're going to use is a one below that, which is called Revolve. And what Revolve does is it takes a single profile, which is what we select, and it'll spin it around an axis, and I'll show you how that works. So if I click on Revolve, I actually highlight this drawing that I've done, and I click on axis and click the center line. What it does is it's revolved that round now to actually create that shape.
Hey, Michael, can you go back over how to make sure that your line sketch is closed real quick? Yep.
So when you hover in the middle of it, I assume you've got something, and when you're hovering in the middle of it, it's not allowing you to highlight it. Is that right?
Yeah, it looks like I didn't get my arcs closed, so I don't know if the points didn't.
So if you zoom in, are they overlapping like that?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
They are overlapping.
Yes.
But you're still not going to be able to select it.
Yeah, let me.
I'd check the bottom. Well, the obvious ones is check the bottom to make sure that the bottom line is touching this bottom line. And then check the top, make sure that it's overlapped. All your lines should be overlapping. If you've drawn something that looks like it's continuous, but it isn't doing, the way you can actually test it is start to draw a line across it. You got it?
Yeah, I think it was the top one. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, no problem. No problem. Right. So, yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that revolve. So we highlight the face. We click on the axis being the center line. What it does is it's revolved. Whenever it does something, what it does is it looks to see if it's overlapping with something else. If it's overlapping with something else, it automatically makes it a cut. We don't want to cut because that'll just create a hole up at the bottom. What we want to do is drop that cut down and create new body. And then we're going to click OK. And effectively, what we've got now is you've now got the leg. That revolve function is brilliant for all sorts of things. I mean, if you want to do little Greebles, you can kind of draw strange little shapes like this. So I don't know, something like that, and then use the revolve button to very quickly create like little interesting pipes or whatever. So stuff like that. So there's like the type of things that you see on the on droids and on the back of domes and that kind of stuff. You can add all sorts of really interesting bits of detail using that revolve function. As I said, in our case, we've used it to create the one leg. Okay, so that's the one leg. So what I'm doing now is quickly create the other leg. I'm not going to repeat that. What I'm actually going to use is a mirror command to create a mirror of this one. So the first thing I want to do is to create a mirror plane that's exactly down the center of here. So exactly the same as what we did before. Construct mid plane and select that side of the gonk, and it will automatically create that little plane there. Click OK. And then what I can do is click on create mirror, highlight the leg, click on the mirror plane, and just highlight that orange mirror plane. It's a new body, click OK. And now what we've got is the 2 legs on the Gonk. That makes sense?
Michael,
Good.
I seem to have a hole in the bottom of my Gonk as opposed to a leg. I don't know what I've done.
Yeah, when you've done the revolve, it's automatically selected as cut. So you didn't drop it down to make it a new body.
So if I delete the resolve and then I can go back and do it again.
Just click on the go back. If you go on the undo at the top, just keep clicking on undo until it gives you your profile back, and then you can redo it. But this time, instead of it saying cut, you get it to do new body.
Excellent.
Are we there, Richard?
Yeah, I've got my first one.
Perfect.
And it was, how did I get the second one again? Sorry.
So it's construct mid-plane, and then you do a mid-plane between that one, the other side, and then you use that as a mirror. So you use create.
Mirror across the plane. Okay, mirror. Yeah, makes sense.
Mirrors on that.
Cool.
Okay,
Hey, Michael, quick question. The reason why you use mid-plane is because you want to create the legs within space right underneath the Gonk, and not opposed to the actual canvas, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What I could have done is I could have drawn the legs actually on the canvas. I could have revolved them on the canvas, and then what I could have done is drag them forward to the right place.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
It was just a quicker way of doing it by creating that mid-plane. Also, I wanted to kind of get into the idea that you can create planes, at any point and any space, really.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now, the feet are very similar to how we actually did the main body of the Gonk. So again, if you go into sketch mode, actually, let me finish sketch. What I might do, I might use that same plane actually to sketch the feet. So let me show you what I'm thinking of doing. So I'm going to open the construction. So a construction and the planes, them are the planes that we created before. A bit like sketches, as soon as you use them, it clicks the little eye off so you can't see them. I'm just going to click the eye back on so I can now see this plane. And this is a mid-plane. This is the one that we originally used to sketch the legs on. Okay. And then I'm just going to go into the line tool. I'm just going to sketch these legs. So I'm going to do these fairly quickly, just so we've just so you'll get the general idea. So again, what I'd like to get is a midpoint on there, so that because they're symmetrical, I'm just going to do one side and then mirror them. So I'm just going to project this time. I will project a specific entity. I'm just going to project the bottom line of that leg. The reason I'm projecting rather than drawing is to get more accuracy if I actually project off the model. And then I'm going to go to the middle, let it lock, and draw my bottom line like that. And then when I've got my bottom line, what I'm going to do is very quickly sketch out where I think the feet will go. So I'm just following. This is just what we did last time with the body of the Gonk. I'm just going to sketch around one half of it. Again, you can interpret the shape how you think it is really, but then you can always go back and alter and change things. I'm just going to show you the general way of doing that. So there, and then I'm going to use create mirror to mirror that sketch that I've just done on that line. Click OK, and then I've broadly got the shape of the Gonk feet. So I'm going to finish sketch. I'm going to highlight one of them and the other side of the feet. And then what I'm going to do is click create and extrude. This time on extrude, where it says direction, and we did this last time when we did the pegs, I'm going to click symmetry. What symmetry does is when you, where's the Gonk gone? Oh, there we go. When you extrude on symmetry, it does this. Whereas when you extrude on one side, it does that. if that makes sense. So symmetry is quite good because it allows you to create the kind of both sides at the same time. So once I've done that, by default, the operation it says is join, and what it'll do, it'll glue this onto the legs. At the moment, I don't want to do this. I want to keep this one as a separate. So I'm going to click on join and select new body. This operation at the bottom is one to watch out. Whenever you create new objects, it will default to what it thinks is right. So sometimes it's a join, sometimes it's a cut. So I tend to always override this. And I also tend to always use new body in the first instance because I can always stick it back together later on. So I've created the first part of the feet. So what I'm going to do now, similar to what we did last time, I'm going to select all the objects. And then I'm going to right click the objects and click on move. And what I'm going to do now is rotate this 90 degrees like that. And then I'm going to broadly line it up with the Gonk model sketch or the reference. So click OK. And the reason I'm doing this, I want to get the profile for those feet, so I can cut those feet like we did with the main body last time. So click OK. Now, what we've done is we've created this as a body. What we're going to do now is create a sketch to cut it like we did do with the body last time. So the way we do that is go back into sketch mode. We can just select the standard origins face. I'm going to give myself some points of reference by using project. This is where we project any part of the body onto the back plane. So I'm going a little bit quicker because we've repeated some of these before, but I'm going to create project. And I'm going to have specific entities as highlighted. And all I'm going to do is do each of these lines that are going across. So it just means I'll hit the mark then when I'm doing all of the little bits of the cuts later on. Okay. So what that's given me now, if I hide the body, oops, hide the bodies, the canvas, you can see it's just giving me some reference lines on my sketch. So what I want to do is do the first cut from there to there. Second cut, I'll take it from there down to there. Then I'm going to bring it in a little bit to there. I'm using these lines as reference so that all the cuts will line up later when I actually do the cut. I'm going to make sure that's straight with that one. I'm going to go that down to there, that down to there, and that down to about there. Okay, so I've drawn now the profile of that side, and while I'm on it, I'll also draw the profile of this side. So I'm going to draw that to there. I'm going to draw that to that point there. I'll cut that little bit in there. I'll join these 2 points up here. I'll make that go out to, so it looks like it's set back a little bit to there. That down to there. So I'm just following the line on the reference model to there, and then that to there. So now what I'm going to do is just delete them reference lines that I've got because I don't need them anymore. I'm just highlighting them, hitting the del key. So if I hide the bodies now, hide the canvas, you can see I've got the profiles left. So what I'm going to do next is finish sketching and click on modify split body like we've done before. Highlight this leg and I'm going to select that line and that line at the same time. What that does is it zooms out a cut from them sketches that we did right the way through to this body. So it's going to cut it, click OK. And what that does is it chops these 2 endpoints off. So you can see I've got more bodies on this side. That's one of the endpoints. I can hit delete on that, get rid of that one. And that's another one. I can hit delete and I get that one. So now what I've got is I've got my Gonk feet. Did all that make sense? Yep. So yeah, I motored through that a little bit, but you've done this before, so it's just a matter of repeating what you've actually done. So let's have a little look here now. You'll see on the Gonk there is also, I mean, there's lots of details. If you wanted to add the details, you can do. One of the main details, as you can see there, is the Gonk foot has got like 2 toes. Now on this reference image I've got here, it doesn't tell me how deep those cuts are, but I can use a little bit of artistic talent, if you like, on there. So I'm just gonna, what I want to do is cut the toes into the Gonk. Does that make sense? And it goes up to about that second line. So I know I've got a rough reference. Let me have a look. Right. So if I'm going to cut the toes, I'm going to cut it from the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is go back into sketch mode. I'm going to sketch another line. This time I'm going to highlight the bottom of the feet. So it does this for me. Okay. Now, what it showed on the diagram, the bit that I'm looking at the moment, is this toe here looks like it goes right into that line there, if you can see it. So that line on this toe is this line here. So what I'm going to do is create, project. I'm going to select that line as project and click OK. What it does, it gives me that, if I look on the bottom, it gives that line then as a reference. Then what I'm going to do is go back into drawing a line. I'm going to draw a small mirror line backwards like that. And then what I'm going to do is draw a line from there out at something that I think will look about like a toe angle. As I said, if you've got a blueprint that's got all different angles and different planes, then you might be able to see how deep that goes back. I haven't, so I'm just guesstimating here a little bit. Once I've created that line, I'm going to use create mirror, highlight that line and use that mirror line I've just selected and click OK. And now what I've got is I've got a little V shape to cut those toes. Might do it a little bit differently actually. Rather than using that as a cut tool like we did before, what I'm going to do is just seal it off. Using it as a cut tool would work perfectly well, but let me just show you why I'm going to do it like this. So I'm going to do it, I'm going to use an extrude now. So I've highlighted that whole triangle, create, extrude. And I think I mentioned this before, but when you extrude into an object, it assumes you want to cut it, so it turns it red and it's selected operation cut here. I can select new body, which is what I would normally do if I'm trying to create something, but in this case, I'm actually using it as a cut. So I can just drag that right the way up. And it's quite useful because it does give you sometimes control if you don't want to cut it all the way through. I'm going to drag it all the way up like that. What you've got to watch when you're dragging this up is you don't hit other objects. Like if I hit the body, I'll create a triangular hole in the body. So I just want to kind of get it somewhere in between. Click OK. And there you go. Now I've got the toe of the Gonk, which matches that image. Okay. So I've done that. The final thing I want to do is give it another foot. So again, what I'm going to do is mirror. Similar to what I did last time, construct mid-plane. If I've already done a plane that goes halfway through the Gonk, but when I did that plane was when the Gonk was over here. I've moved it since then, and the planes don't move with the object, if that makes sense. So I'm going to have to recreate these. So exactly the same as we did before. Construct mid-plane, select the 2 sides, so it gives me something that's exactly in the middle. Click OK, and then create mirror. Highlight the foot, select the mirror plane, highlight that thing we just created. It's created the other foot, click OK. And we've now got something that looks vaguely Gonk-like. Okay, I will pause there for a sec. Questions? I know we flew through quite a bit there. Has anybody got stuck on anything, or does all that make sense up to now?
Makes sense. I've not managed to do any of it. I've been watching you. But yeah,
okay,
makes sense.
So I'm doing the same, and it makes sense. I'm not trying to follow, because if I was, I wouldn't take any of it in. So, but yeah, that all makes sense.
No, that's cool. Like I said, it's hard enough trying to watch and keep up and do it at the same time. But as long as it makes sense. But effectively, all we're really doing is creating objects, and then we're cutting them and shaping them. As I said, with direct modeling, it's very much like wood, if that makes sense. So we've actually got now something that's vaguely printable. We said last time that the upper and lower bodies, we've made those printable. Oh, exciting. These feet will now. This again is kind of a little bit from experience. These feet will print stood up with the legs attached to them, with the exception of one area, which is this bit under here. This is an overhang. So if I look at it like this, this is a 90-degree angle out. And so when your printer tries to print this, it'll print into midair, and you'll end up with a little bit of spaghetti or a messy kind of print. So there's various options on how you kind of fix that. What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to cheat and tweak the model a little bit. So this is one of the kind of perhaps easier ways of fixing it. If I highlight, similar to what we did with the body last time, if I highlight, oops, where have you gone? Highlight that under edge corner right the way around, and then I click on modify and chamfer. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to chamfer out this like that. Oops. Get it the biggest chamfer that I can get it, like that, which is 1 millimeter. Click OK. And what that's done is it's created a little bit now of a chamfer all the way around that will allow me then to be able to print that 45-degree angle. I'm not sure it'll be able to print that. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, so what happens now is when it's printing, so look at it from the front, when it's printing this out, it will print this okay, no overhangs. It'll print this straight up. It'll be able to print this in because it's printing on top of this, that's okay. It'll print this up okay, it'll print out here, it'll print up there okay, it'll print that okay, and then it'll start to print those okay. The one part it's now going to fail on is this little overhang here on the toes. What I'll do is I can highlight that, hit the delete key, the del key. What it does is it fixes the model now so that it's actually, this is printable, as it gives me now a nice 45-degree angle on all sides. If I can find it, there we go. So that's one way of doing it. The other way that you could do it is you could print it with supports. It's not always going to be successful with supports because that distance is 1 point, that's just under 2 millimeters. Getting supports in there under 2 millimeters is pretty tight. And to be honest, the overhang on 2 millimeters will probably print okay-ish. I know that this side, this will print really, really nice and neatly. The other thing that I could do is I could modify, combine the leg and the foot. Okay. I'm just going to hide the canvas. What I could do is if I could draw a line pretty much down the middle, guess here, like that. Tick. Finish get to modify split body, and I could actually split the legs and feet into two parts. So into that's one part. Whoops. And that's the other part. If I split those into two parts, they would print fine if this was flat on the bed. So because there's no overhangs there, it's just printing straight out. And likewise, that one will print fine on the bed. It's the same thing. And then, but it just means that when you've done that, then you've got to somehow assemble the two. So that out of the two, it's, you know, I think that one's probably the better compromise. In reality, you're not likely to see those angles. you can actually tweak the angles. I don't know if it's going to allow me to do it. Let me just check. There's a function called draft, which, let's see. Yeah, there you go. So I don't know if you can see that. What it does is it allows you to change that angle a little bit so you can make that angle tighter. And again, draft is really, really useful. So I'll just step through it again, modify draft. With draft, the first thing you highlight is the fixed plate, the plate that isn't going to move. It says, it calls it pull direction, which I find is a little bit non-intuitive. But which plane is not going to move? That one. And then the faces, which is the one that is going to move, is that one. But when it does that, it gives you a little dial on the side. And that dial means you can then tweak that angle. So if that 45-degree angle was a little bit too pronounced, what I could do is tweak that to be in, you know, 20 degrees or whatever. Overhangs, 45 degrees will print very, very neatly. 20 degrees is about the limit that I would go to on overhang, which is quite a steep overhang on there. But you know, on things like where I've designed the R2 panels and the doors, I do use a 20-degree overhang on the inside, this bit, rather than it being exactly 90 degrees, because it just then prints as a single print. And when you look at it, it's not noticeable at all. But that's just a little bit on getting stuff ready for printing. What I'm going to do for ease and simplicity, I'm just going to keep to the 45-degree ones because it should give me quite a nice print. Now, what I've got here now is I've done what I always do, which is I've created what I want to do on one side, I've mirrored as I've gone along, and then realised that I've made changes to the original. So all I do in that case is delete the bits that I don't want. I'm now ready to join these into a single body. So I'm going to click Modify, Combine, as we've done before. We combine the two together, okay. And then what I'm going to use is that center plane again, which I've still got there, to create and mirror, highlight that whole leg and foot, and I'm going to select that orange plane that I created before as a plane. So now I've got those feet back as I wanted them to be.
Mike, would you print those out solid, the feet? I guess they're not that big, are they? What, about 5 centimeters?
These, let's have a look. So, another really useful one is if you click on Inspect, you've got a little measure tool. So if I click on the measure tool, I can highlight, say, what's the distance between that seat there, between that very top edge and the foot. So that is 53.4 millimeters. So it's just over 5 centimeters. So yeah, I'd print them out solid, those, yeah. I wouldn't bother hollowing them. And to be honest, you'll be using infill anyway. So there you go. So you've got those. What I want to do now, let's have a look, is I'd like to kind of get those so they will fit into the Gonk body a little bit, so I can glue them in or do whatever I want to do. What I'm going to do with that is I'll show you. We'll make a little bit of a hole for them. So we'll go into sketch mode. This time I'm going to do it on the very base and make the hole. And then what I'm going to use, have a look. So create, project. I'm just going to use the very edge of that. Whoops. I'll do both sides at once. So all I'm doing is just using the very edge of that top of the legs that I've used. I'll just hide the legs for the time being. So what that's given me is 2 circles on the bottom. Similar to what we did when we did the toes, I'm going to now just select these circles. If it only lets you select half a circle, if you just press the shift key, you can select the other half. Just depends how it sits on the faces that you're doing. And I'm going to click create and extrude. Oops, it wants out sketch mode, create and extrude. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut those into that body like that. So it gives me a little bit of a hole. Okay. So now I've got a hole in the bottom of the gonk, which lets me put the legs in. What it has done is it's actually cut a real hole into the body, which is going to give me problems when I go to print it, because when we said last time, we've got some bridging go across here. And the reason for that, I'll just show you why. Body. The reason for that is you've kind of got this step in at the bottom here, which isn't allowing me to be able to cut the depth that I want to. So I've cut those holes. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go undo to the point where those holes aren't cut like that. And I'm just going to fix that. So I'm going to hide the top of the body, hide the body, and those two faces now, which is this face and this face, I'm going to shift and select, and I'm going to right click and use the pull command that we used last time, just to pull those up a little bit so that we're going to create that top bit a bit thicker, so it'll actually hold, it'll allow us to make those holes for those legs. So I'll put that there. It'll also give us slightly more weight at the bottom of the plastic, which will be good because it will give it a better center of gravity. And then now I've thickened that bottom of that plate up, I can now select those circles like that, create extrude, and I can now drill into there just so I get a flat surface like that. Okay. So that's now going to print. Remember, they print this orientation up. It's going to print me two little circle discs there, which will allow me to put the legs in there. So if I put the legs back in, you'll see now there's a gap between this hole and these legs. So I'm just going to have a quick look to make sure that the legs will fit in. One thing that Fusion doesn't do is if you end up overlapping bodies, it'll let you overlap bodies. However, when you print, it won't let you overlap bodies, if that makes sense. So what I mean by overlap bodies is it'll allow this to dig into this other part. So I'm going to use something called inspect and section analysis. What section analysis is, I don't know if we looked at this last time. What it does do is it sort of cuts the body in half temporarily so you can look at it. It's asking for a plane. I'm just going to use the feet plane because I know they're straight. And what I can do now is it shows me kind of like a cross section cut. I can move it along like that. I can see a cross section at any point. So I'm going to look there and just see how much overlap there is. And there you go. So you can see that the body is actually digging into the legs there. So if I printed them, tried to fit those two together, they wouldn't fit together. That makes sense. I'm going to click OK and keep on section analysis. So actually what I'd like to do is make this hole that I've made for the legs a little bit bigger. So I'm going to highlight that hole. And while I'm at it, I might as well do the other side. And I'm going to click right click, press pull again. And I'm just going to pull this up out so we've got a bit more clearance. Now what you can do is if you touch it there like that, so it's about touching, I can now choose my clearance. So the clearance I'm going to put on this is 0.25 millimeter. And what that will be is it with 0.25 millimeter in all areas. So it'll give you about 0.5 millimeter all the way around, if that makes sense. The way that I'm going to do that is where it's got the current distance, and that's measuring the radius of this circle, is 16.288. I could add that on, get a calculator out, but I can actually allow you to put mathematical symbols in there. So if I put plus and 0.25, it will then automatically add those 0.25 millimeters on there. And if I click OK, then I've now got that clearance that I need in the leg, so that one will fit. And because I've selected both sides, it's also done it on this side as well. And then finally, what I also want to do is take this plane here and make it so it fits into this slot. So again, what I'm going to use is create extrude, and I'm just going to drag it down so it doesn't need to touch. It looks about the same distance as the other ones, like that. Now, if you remember what we said last time, the difference between extrude and pull. So if I highlight that plane and use pull, it'll try to recreate that curve. You see that? So see how it recreates the curve. If I do an extrude, the extrude takes a flat plane and just pulls it out at a straight 90-degree angle. So that's the difference between the two. So I'm just extrude on that. Because this is it's a socket part almost, I want a nice flat bit at the top. Click OK. So that's given me 2.403. I'm going to remember that number. In fact, what I might just make it's 2.4, so it's easier to remember. Click OK. The reason I need to remember it is I need to do the same on the other leg. You see, the other leg needs extruding as well. I could delete the other legs and remirror it if I wanted to, but I'm just going to extrude it 2.4 again. Click OK. Bring the body back. I'm now going to hide the analysis. That's what the analysis is, where it's giving me that cross section. So I go back to the model. So what we've got now is we've got the Gonk top bit, which will print OK. We've got the middle bit, which will print OK. The bottom bit will print OK. These three parts have got filament pegs, so they line up correctly. We've got 2 feet with legs attached that will print OK in that orientation, and we've created a socket on there so that you can push those in and glue them in, or however you want to fix those in. That makes sense. All good so far.
Yeah, very good.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, I like it.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
This one question. So when we print the legs, how are we going to make sure that they're 90 degrees to the body itself? You know, does that make sense? They're not toed in or toed out.
I was just thinking that myself.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you mean once
Okay,
you
cool.
printed them, when you fit them, how would you make sure that they?
Exactly. So we put pegs at the top between the center plate and the mid plate.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. So so at the moment they're perfectly circular. So what you could do is spin them around. They could be all different sort of angles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Action figures, that's called posable, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you wanted to key them some more, so what I could do, let me just have a look, see how much space I've got on there first of all. Yeah. So I'm just gonna have a quick look at how much space I've got. Inspect.
Could you just put 2 holes in there, Michael, to put 2 screws in?
Yeah. That would work. You could just pop a couple of screw holes in there. In fact, to be honest, sorry,
Peg holes. Put peg holes.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 little peg holes like you did on the body. All you've got to really do sectional analysis. There you go. You just got to make sure you've got enough plastic to be able to get the peg holes in there.
Yeah.
You know, and again, if you haven't, it's easy enough, because all you do is just pull those faces back up like we did last time. So you can actually highlight that face, and that face, and give yourself lots of plastic if you want. Something like that. And then effectively what you do then is just put your I think we used 2.1 last time, and
That's what it was.
2.1. I'm going to put the 2.1. Stop it. The mouse is sliding down mouse mat, which is why it's not letting me type things in. 2.1. There we go. So I'm just going to. I'm literally just going to mirror those two onto the other side quickly. Oh, great. Never mind that one. Okay. Yeah, so there you go. We've got a couple of little peg holes. And if you remember last time, just get rid of the analysis. I can highlight that, highlight these peg holes. There we go. Click create extrude. Oops, not in sketch mode. Create extrude. Bring, when you're extruding in, what we're going to do is use these to make holes like that. They'll only make holes in objects that are visible. So because you can't see the legs, they're not going to make holes in the legs. So I need to bring the legs back by clicking on the little arrows. Just going to click symmetry. And then what I'm going to do is drag them. What I want to make sure is I don't make holes in the other side here because it'll affect the bridging. But I've put a fair bit of plastic in there actually, didn't I? So that gives me about 10 mil. So I'll make those about 5 mil, I think. 5 mil. So that'll give me 5 mil either side, 5 mil hole in the top, 5 mil hole in the bottom. Click OK. And now we've got peg holes in the legs. And they'll print fine because you're printing them from this base upwards. And you've got peg holes on the bottom as well. And again, they'll print okay because it's printing this way and it bridges. Then they're 10 mil pegs effectively. And what I've done is I've offset them so that they're not exactly symmetrical, so that it will make sure that you put them on the front and the back the right way, as well as keeping the orientation. So that's one way of doing it. You could create the socket. So rather than using a circle, you can actually use a polygon. So that's another way that I would use to key it. So I can create, when I pull that last part of the leg, I could create that shape so it would all go in a certain polygon shape. So there's a couple of ways of doing that. Okay, any more questions?
Cool.
Excellent, Michael. Great.
Nope.
Yeah, brilliant.
Good. Right, what I'm going to do now, like I said before, is I'm going to very quickly touch on some of the Greebles. We'll start off with this little E-shaped Greeble on this side, and I'll show you how to do this. And pretty much it's the same technique for most of these, but I think what we'll do is we'll do one more session, which we'll probably do next week. What I may do is add a few of the extra Greebles in between this session and the next session. And then the next session, we can do a little bit more of a Q&A or asking specific questions on how you do stuff, because we're not far off a rather boring, bland printable Gonk at the moment. We've just got to add all of the Greebles and things like that on there. So I'm going to go into sketch mode, and I'm going to select, and rather than select the origins or one of the planes that I've created, I'm going to actually just select this face. I'm going to sketch on this face. Now, when I sketch on this face, what it does is it puts me perfectly on top of that, which you can see, it's at 90 degrees. So I'm sketching on that face, and that face is at a bit of an angle. If I want to look front, I can press the little front button here on the top right, where it allows me to square it up again, but I'm still sketching on that angle. So I'll show you what we'll do. So I'm just going to draw a line. I'm just going to draw that little E out. Well, is it an E? I don't know, it's an E, but we'll call it an E. I don't think. There we go. So quickly. Make sure that lines up with that. Make sure it lines up with that. A lot of Fusion is just doing this kind of thing. Or if you're designing your own stuff, kind of adding extra details. That's probably slightly out. Where that line? There we go. There. Don't want to lock to that pin. There. And then I might as well just add that block on that one as well. I've got a very aggressive pug outside that's barking at something, I don't know what. If you can get an aggressive pug, it's not very aggressive. I'm going to click Finish Sketch. And now what I've done, you can see I've done that sketch, but you can see how it's on that angled plane. Now, when it's on the angled plane, I can now highlight that and highlight that piece, and I can pull these out a little bit. So if I look at the reference, they're out by about that far. So we'll have a go at that, shall we? Wherever that is. Let's pull it out to about something like that. And click on New Body. Don't want to commit to a join yet. I just want to do a new body. Okay. So now I've got that detail that's on there. Actually, looking at that, those are the two vents, aren't they? And that's actually that longer piece isn't quite as pronounced, but not to worry. So I'm now going to highlight again all the parts. So I'm just going to move it to the other plane. If you didn't want to do this, you can actually attach the other picture on this plane so that there's two of those canvases, one on each side, saves you having to keep rotating. I'm mainly doing this because it's good sort of practice to keep rotating and trying to move all the objects at once and stuff like that. So move that to front, 90 degrees. There we go. Look at it from the front. And then I'm going to slide it across to there so I can now see it. So, yeah, did a very good job of guessing against the wrong picture of those vents. So what I'm going to do now is highlight that. Now, I've left that block. Hang on a sec. So when I rotated it, I took everything apart from that little tiny block. So let me just go back. And this time, I don't know, make sure I get that block. Move.
Can you move the block on its own, Michael?
I could do it. It just means I'd manually have to kind of move it around a bit. So
right, okay, yeah.
I found it easier to. You can use things like a line, like some of the line functions, to pull it across. But it's if it's easy enough to undo, then I'll undo it. If it was kind of about 5 steps ago, I think though I probably would move it manually. So now I've got all of those in. Just want to pull those back. So again, right click, select the two faces, right click, pull. Remember, we use pull a lot. I'm just going to pull it back to the proper reference, which it should be, which it looks like it's about there, like that. Okay, so now I've got that little detail on the side. I'm quite happy with that. When I'm ready to commit on that, I can click on the modify combine. Combine, highlight that. Now again, if you look at this, what it's done, because it's extruded, it's and we did it on that face, you can see it's come out with a little bit of an angle. It's still going to give us a problem though when we're printing, because if you remember the old printed in air, let's have a look how big it is. Yeah, it's 1.9. It's just under 2 millimeters out, so it would still give us a bit of an issue. So on overhangs, and say that's what you're printing, and then you want to print out. That's a 90-degree overhang. That will definitely give you problems. Most of the software recommends a 45-degree. Oops. 1, 3, 5. 6, 45. Gives a 45-degree angle, which is like that. That'll give you a really sort of clean print. And I've got these up to. So that's a 20-degree angle overhang. So if you look at it from straight, that's 90 degrees, that's 135 degrees, which is a 45-degree overhang. And that's that's actually a 70-degree overhang. And 70-degree overhangs, it will print. That's what I'd use to give the details in R2's body. So I tend to use this 70-degree overhang as a way of printing 45 degrees without having to cut it into lots and lots of different pieces. You can cut it into pieces if you want to. And with this particular model, you're a bit of an advantage anyway, because you've got a bit of an angle start with this way. But what I want to try and do is put a little bit of an angle, centered again. I want to put a little bit of an angle on that underside, which is there. So what I'm going to use is, I might use the draft button again, modify draft. Right, so the pull direction is the face you don't want to move, and the faces you want to move is that one. I don't know if you can do multiple faces. Let's try multiple faces. I'm just selecting all the faces on the model there that would actually give an overhang. Let's see if they all move. Oh, look at that, they all move at once. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Didn't know that. That makes life a little bit easier. So now what I can do is, on all of those faces that potentially are going to go wrong, I can add a bit of an angle. So that's 0. What's that? That's about 0. So I'm assuming I've got about a 4 degree start, which means I could get away with 16, couldn't I? Let's have a look. So just to be sure, I'll go 8. So I'll go 17. 17 plus 4 is 21. So that'll print okay. Okay. So what that's done now is it's let me multiple select those little overhangs, and I've just given very, very slight bit on there so it'll print okay. And as you see, when you look at the model and when this model's printed, given its size, you won't even notice those. But what it does is it saves you having to potentially cut this particular detail off and do, and redo it. And then there's just this bit here. So modify draft, the bit you don't want to move, the bit you do want to move, and then it's remembered that 17 degrees from last time. Didn't need to type that in, so click OK. So now that particular part there will print fine. Okay, does that make sense? Yep.
Yeah, perfect.
Good. And then similar again, I'll just do a quick one on the front of here. So this little panel here. So I'll just draw this as a square. Let's guess it like that. Is that about like that? And then what I'm going to do is add the little fillets. So you, in the modify command on Sketch, you can add fillets. So I'm going to add fillet, and you just highlight 2 of the lines, and it will automatically fillet it in there, and then you pull it out to where you want that fillet to be. So we'll call that fillet 7.5. That looks about right. The reason it's a round number, I'm going to use a round number, is because I want to fillet the other corners as well. So I'm just going to type that into 7.5 so they all match. Fillet 1, 2, 7.5. Fillet. I actually quite like doing Greebles and doing some of the details because it's quite, it's quite good fun. It's even better when there's no definite reference because you can be a bit more creative. So I've got that on the outside, and then one of my favorite commands is offset. So if I click on modify offset and highlight the outside of there, I'll just drag that in and it'll create the middle piece automatically. So offset takes an existing sketch and effectively allows you to create a sketch inside it. Why it's my favorite piece is it lets you add things like panel details really easily. So if you want to just quickly show you, so if you wanted to do, say, something around detail on this panel, I can click modify offset. I can highlight the entire outside of that and I can pull this in. So if I wanted to do a couple of panels, modify offset. I like that. And again, there we go. And what you see immediately, almost, I've got now something where I can add by just a bit of pressing and pulling details to a panel. So the offset one really lets you quickly create all sorts of interesting details on models. I'll just go back to that because we didn't want to do that. I'm just showing you a little bit around it. And then on this one, it looks like that this actually comes out. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to press pull. And what I'm going to do then is pull that out a little bit like that. And then I'm going to highlight these two bits, and I'm going to make these little bits rounder. I'm going to use fillets. And I'm just going to fillet them off a little bit so it smooths them out like that. I'm going to click OK. And that's effectively how you do, how you start to add lots of details. The things to consider when you're adding the details, the thing that's always at the back of my mind is once I've added the detail, my first thought is, oh, that looks really nice. My second thought is, oh my God, it will look print. So now I know that, for example, this is an overhang and this is an overhang. So I've then got to find ways of starting to just add that 17-degree angle in again. So print OK, modify, draft, that one and that one, click OK. Look at that. So
is that still 17 degrees? Because that's the opposite. That's the corner face, isn't it?
yeah, it's 17 degree. What it's actually, just have a look, see what it was doing then. What it's done is it's actually applied the 17 degrees on all the way around. So I only needed to do it once.
Yeah.
So
That's the one little detail I noticed when I'm printing. I printed the mini Gonk, the top. It's like the very top of it didn't bridge, and I know he's got those three supports, but my printer just didn't do a good job of it. I was wondering if maybe we can maybe shallow out that angle a little bit more.
which one?
You know what I'm saying? The top, no, rotate it down some. So it's the inset top angle.
The inset, this one?
No. It's on the outside face.
Oh, on the outside face.
Yeah, my bad.
Which one?
So, okay, keep going up.
Yeah.
To the front. I'm looking at the front face. We want to go to the front face.
Yeah.
And the top inside. There we go, right there.
Okay.
Yeah. Because my printer just for some reason, even though he had those little tiny little triangle pieces that you had to cut out, my printer just couldn't bridge that very well. It looks like I got spaghetti on the top side.
Matt's model. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
okay,
a flat. That was going in less than 17. It wasn't the same as Michael's.
Yeah.
It just had the two kind of support beams that you cut, or three support things that you cut out.
Maybe
this has got a better angle to print over.
Exactly.
Because Matt's was like, yeah.
So maybe we can make an adjustment to Matt's model to make it more to where it's easier to print. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there it is.
There it is. Yeah. I've already got it on the shell.
Yeah.
Wish I'd have known that before I printed it.
No. Yeah. So Matt sent across his model, so got a copy of it, which is quite happy to share, by the way. So yeah. So just have a quick look. I got you. So he's put the little supports in, hasn't he?
Yeah. So you cut them out, but I mean, on the underside, it's still, for my printer, maybe it's just because of the way I have it set up, it just looked like spaghetti, but everything else turned out great,
Yeah.
Mine was a bit messy on that bit as well, Andrew.
Yeah.
But I just gave a bit of filling and sanding. It was fine.
Yeah. I hear you. Haven't gotten to that part yet.
Just going to see if it lets me draft. No. So modify.
Okay. It's a hell of a model, though. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's I can't adjust the angle for whatever reason. But I mean, it's I've deleted those three support parts. I know what you mean. It's and it's a fair. What's that? It's 100 mil. So yeah, it's a fair old bridge anyway on that one.
It does get a bit messy.
Mm-hmm.
It does get a bit messy, across there.
Yeah, there's ways. Well, there's ways you can fix that. As I said, you can add that extra angle in there, so it could increase that angle. I could work out how we actually modify the damn thing.
Yeah, but
But yeah, don't. Yeah, it's
yeah,
anyway. I'll be getting distracted, but yeah, I can share Matt's model so you can play around with that.
okay, thanks.
But yeah, so this one will print because we've given it the 21 degrees on the print side, and I think that's pretty much it. If you look at this model, all the other parts effectively are exactly what we've done with these here. So it's a matter of going in and sketching and extruding, and or pulling in to make these vents. So what you end up with is then something that looks, more and more like the detailed version of the Gonk. But you can add any extra panels, any vents, or anything else that you want to do that's in there. The only kind of technique I haven't covered at the moment is this little pipe here. So you can see that little pipe stuck out here. So we use something called sweep for that one. And what the sweep does is if you wanted to create a pipe, I'll quickly show you what a sweep is, and then we better draw it to a close, I think, but we can have a little play with it for next time. So if you draw a circle on one plane, fix sketch, just going to finish sketch, and then on the other plane, we'll draw a line. We create, what should we do? Do a spline. We create a bit of a curly path line. That. Tick. Oops. That didn't work, did it? There we go. Finish sketch. So I've created a circle on one, and then I've created the path on which I want the circle to go. What I can use is create sweep. I highlight the circle. Right. Sweep. Highlight the circle. I've lost my window. There it is. Path. Select that as a path. What it does is it creates a pipe, if you can see.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Great.
When you're sketching, it always sketches in one dimension. As in, if you look at that, it's a flat sketch. You look at those are actually sketched in 2 dimensions. So you can individually move points. Show you. So I can highlight these points and I can move them up and down as well as on that other plane, if that makes sense. Click OK. And then if I do create sweep, I can highlight that, select path. And what you've got now is you've got one that moves in both planes, if you like. So that's quickly.
And move them to the canvas, Mike, could you?
Yeah, once you've drawn something in, show you. Once you've drawn an image, just do a bit of a bendy spline like that. Once you've drawn that, so you can see that's like a flat snake that's been run over by a car. It's completely flat. What you can do is you can highlight the individual points once you've hit finish sketch. Click on move, and it'll let you move the individual points then up and down. So outside of the flat plane, so it's no longer like a squashed snake. It lets you move them into more 3 dimensions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then you can drag it over the canvas to create the sort of shape you need. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'd use this as a reference. I'm just showing you how we. What you tend to do is draw this first, and then add this second one after that by moving the points around. And then when you've done that, then once you've got your line in the right place, you can create sweep. Just do that. So effectively, that's what I did on the little pipes on the front of the chopper. Where the ones that go on the legs. So you use that for that. And again, that then becomes a body that you can play around with.
With the size of that gonk though, would you be able to like print it off a miniature R2 and the little pipes that go on his feet were just big enough for filament? So we just had filament holes in, and you just bent a piece of filament into the holes to hold it, and it was just about the right size. Would that
That
be
is so cool.
That's absolutely perfect, Tracy. Yeah, that's it's 2 point. Well, it's just about 2 mil. You get away with 2 mil pipes on that. So what you could do is those 2.1 millimeter holes that we've done. In fact, we're going to now modify the model for next time based on that suggestion. But those holes would be great. All you do is create a hole in the foot, by the looks of it, and then a hole in the body just above there. And then you can either use a piece of filament or a piece of flex filament for those pipes.
Yeah, instead of printing something so tiny.
Well, you would. I don't think you'd be able to be honest.
You wouldn't be able to,
And it'd be, be really, if you were doing a full scale one, it'd print okay, but not something this size and tiny.
You see, I'd reach into my electronics drawer and pull out some cable wire.
Yeah, I haven't got it flying around to show you, but it's around somewhere. But
yeah, anything that's that sort of size and scale would be perfect. So. Fabulous. Okie dokes. Right. So if I can finish, I think we're pretty much done for this session. We've got the gonk to a relatively gonk looking stage. What I'll do is I'll add a couple of more details to it in between now and the next session. Then what we'll do on the last session is just cover off the details that have been added. If you do anything different technique wise, I can talk around what we're doing. Then if anybody's got any questions, just fire them away.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Really appreciate it.
Cool.
Yeah, very good.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Michael.
No questions? Okay. Have a great evening, and I will see you all next time. Thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.
everyone. Thank you,
Cheers.
Miles.
Good night.
Right. Stop.